and preparedness. Uh, Hello, everyone. I'm Anand Bijeta, and I'm working in the field of disaster management since last 18 years. And today I'm presenting a PPT on DRR as an approach and preparedness as a part of emergency response. For this, I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation, which I would like to share with you. And it is here. So DRR as an approach and preparedness as a part of emergency response. My inputs and ideas and suggestions are here. Uh, this is in accordance to the 7 priorities and 4 targets of Sendai framework and sustainable development goals related to disaster management. The community-based flood risk management and livelihood. This is the topic of my presentation. It aims to assist in post-flood establishment of community-based flood risk management. The two approaches are reducing community vulnerabilities and strengthen their ability to proactively cope with the floods, and B is strengthening linkages between communities and local governments. This will be achieved through 5 points. Number 1 is flood education to the relevant stakeholders from district level to village level. 2, strengthening community-based flood early warning and extreme weather alerts. 3, participatory planning of flood preparedness, response, and recovery. 4, implementation of community prioritized sub-project for flood mitigation. 5, pilot testing of the RIS platforms. So this can be achieved by overall implementation of community-based flood risk management and livelihood subcomponent, which have further been divided into 5 steps. The step 1 is project planning. The step 2 is community mobilization for the formation of disaster management committee. Number 3 is capacity building training on preparation of village disaster management plan and formation of task force groups. Number 4 is community-based flood risk mitigation and livelihood planning at village level. And number 5 is implementation of CBFR-ML plans at village level. So let's start with step 1. In the step 1, the project planning activities is being initiated. It will start by the mobilization of NGO coordinator and special service teams. A full day orientation to the team by the social development specialists needs to be given. Then selection of the target villages in the district needs to be done by the NGO. And then the selection of village facilitator needs to be done. So as you know, this step will strengthen the HR human resource, which is very important for the implementation of any project. It will ensure that the village is selected based on defined criteria. It is ensured that the village facilitator from each village is selected. These village facilitators will be from the village. They won't be migrating for their livelihood to the other areas. The step 2 will be the community mobilization and formation of disaster management committee. As you know, the number 1 and the most important aspect of the success of any project is the community mobilization. So the activity will require community sensitization with door-to-door campaign, followed by village level community meeting. Number 2 will be the sensitization of elected village representatives and sub-district officials and heads. The third point would be formation of disaster management committee. Then again, formation of task force groups. Then again, district level workshop to finalize the community-based flood risk management and livelihood project activities and work plan. So here I will stress on community mobilization. The community mobilization must be done door to door. Every house of a particular village and inhabitants must be aware that a particular project is going to be implemented in their village. This can be done by the door-to-door mobilization by the community volunteer. They will move door to door. They will sensitize each house. They will request the inhabitants to come on a particular day to a common place for village meeting. This will ensure 100% and adequate attendance for the village meeting. Once the village meeting starts, the aspects of the project, the aspects of the plans of the projects will be discussed with the community, will be discussed with the government representatives, the elected village representatives. So once the community mobilization is done, the village meeting is facilitated. This will come up with the formation of task force groups and the initiation of village plan. Now the step 3, capacity building and public awareness. Once the task force group and the village committee, village disaster management committee is formed, there is a need to develop training modules on flood, early warning, extreme weather alerts, along with preparedness, response, and recovery planning for community. Again, there is a need to conduct training needs assessment, developing training material, then training of trainers at district level is required, training of disaster management committee member on preparation of village disaster management plan is required. As I mentioned earlier, that once the community mobilization takes place, the community comes to a common place, the village representatives and the government representatives, they sit together and they form a disaster management committee. This committee will consist of the elders and the community members from the village representatives and the government officials. So once the disaster management committee is formed, this will be the steel frame of the village disaster management plan. So this committee members, they will then constitute task force group amongst themselves. They will, for example, select the young people who are inhabitants of the village, who don't go to the other place or migrate to the other place for the livelihood. They will form the search and rescue group. Then again, the first aid group, the carcass disposal group, the early warning group, the lifestyle and cattle rescue group, etc. Apart from that, the documentation of the community sensitization and capacity building needs to be done. This will ensure that the milestones achieved will be training materials will be prepared, list of all disaster management committees will be approved by the government resource at the village level. Trainers would be selected from state NGOs and interagency group, etc. The training of trainers will be initiated. Again, the most important task force of volunteers will be created at the village level. Flood response, this task force group, these task force volunteers, they will be trained and they will be the first responder, because in any disaster, the first responder is the community. And once the community is trained, then only they will be able to help themselves. Now the step 4, it is about the planning at the village level, the disaster management planning at the village level. The template of the plan will be finalized in consultation with the community, with preparedness and response and recovery as the main component of that document. That plan will be endorsed by the government officials. Then again, using result 2 that mentioned earlier, the planning at the village level will be done by disaster management committee. They will follow the exact guidelines to meet the objectives of the project. The guidelines will also ensure the timelines. Apart from that, the plans are reviewed, finalized, and submitted to the village, then again to the local government office, then again at the district level. And once at the district level, the consultative workshop is ensured with the government, they will accept the village disaster management plan and they will mainstream it in their flagship program. So once the village disaster management plan comes under the flagship program of the government, the budget is then allocated and the plan is then ensured. The milestones that will be achieved will be the village level community-based flood risk mitigation plan will be prepared. Village disaster management plan will be mainstreamed with the flagship government program. For example, the construction of raised sanitation structures in flood-prone area, the construction of raised community shelters, schools, houses and other infrastructure above the highest flood level. Apart from that, the task force volunteers would be trained. So this is the step 4. The step 5, it is the final step, implementation of the plans at the village level. So using step 4, the CBFRML plans for each village must be reviewed carefully, and priority activities for preparedness, response, and recovery are identified by the communities. So the community needs to identify their preparedness, response, and recovery aspect in local context. It must be inclusive. Then they must identify the priority of the activities. It needs to be reflected in that plan. Again, they need to review the existing development planning process and projects in the district, which is being undertaken by the government. So they will review their plan. They will make it more holistic, and they will try to mainstream in the government ongoing projects. This will establish linkages. Once the linkages are established for each flagship projects with existing programs of the government, this will mainstream disaster risk reduction aspects in the government plan. This is most important, mainstreaming the disaster risk reduction program of the village disaster management plan into the government plans. In many of the developing countries, we see that it is not mainstreamed. So once the village disaster management plan is made, it will be mainstreamed with the government plans. Again, at the district level, consolidation of the prioritized sub-projects with clear-cut identification of the implementation mechanism will be done. And this will result into the milestones that priority of the projects will be identified, identification and agreement of one priority activity to be supported by the grants would be done. Again, list of flagship priority projects identification and agreement on one priority activity by the community, by the Village Development Committee to be supported by the grants would be done. So what I discussed earlier, it is in accordance to the Sustainable Development Goals related to disaster risk management. As we know that there are overall 15 goals related to disaster risk management, and they are covered in this presentation which I gave. Apart from that, of course, the Sendai framework, which has 4 priorities and 7 targets that will be taken care of. And in this way, we will be able to do an ideal disaster risk reduction as an approach, preparedness as a part of emergency response. These were my ideas, inputs, and suggestions, and strategies to be implemented in short term for your reference. Thank you. Thank you very much.